How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So we got some promotions potentially coming up over the next couple days. Today is the manipulation service time deadline, and ultimately we need youth. I think it's time to pick a direction, and if we're being honest, finding out any information for the future is probably in the best interest of the Yankees, determining if they have some prospects who can help us in 2024 and beyond. The notable ones, Everson Pereira. And interestingly, yesterday, Pereira and catcher Austin Wells were not in the lineup for Scranton, which could indicate maybe they're going to be promoted. We'll find out, but we want to talk about a couple guys who could get the call up and why it's time to make this decision. I mean, we're 6.5 games back in the wild card. I don't care what Aaron Boone or Aaron Judge have to say about us fighting and, maintaining our hope that we can make the postseason. Our probability is probably less than 5% at this point. I think it's time to change course and really start to think about the future, Ryan. But before we dive into things, how do you do today? And what do you think about Everson Pereira getting the call up potentially over the next day or two?
Yeah, so, today is obviously the day that marks the MLB calendar, or what we call the championship season the championship season calendar. And that just is the fancy way of saying the regular season. Now, it's not games played, it's days left. So today marks there are 45 days left on that calendar. That means that if a prospect comes up and they are ranked in the top 100, they're not going to, or not just if they're ranked in the top 100, just any prospect that comes up, they're not going to lose their rookie eligibility if they're a position player. The only two ways you lose it are if you spend more than 45 days on a roster or get over 130 at-bats. And I imagine the Yankees really care about keeping that down for Pereira because he's a top 100 prospect on MLB Pipeline and Baseball America. I'm personally very excited because I think today is the day. But the reason that it's important for the Yankees to wait until today is because they can get draft compensation if Pereira finishes in the top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting next season. He doesn't have to flat out win the award. If he wins the award, he gets, the Yankees pick obviously is better. But the Yankees obviously want a shot at that compensation. And as annoying as that sounds, it is something that good front offices will do, right? That's how you have to operate this. If the Yankees were in a tighter pennant race, like if the Yankees were 1.5 games back, or 1 game back, or holding a wild card spot by 1 game, I think there would have been more pressure to call him up earlier, because at that point now we're talking about games that really matter. But at this point, you're 6.5 games back. It feels like promoting Pereira to lose that draft pick earlier, just to miss the playoffs doesn't really matter. So, end of the day, the big thing for the Yankees right now is who are they going to, send down? Pereira is on the 40-man roster. So if they choose to call him up, they would have to option someone. They do not have to DFA someone. The more interesting case here, I feel, is Austin Wells, because it's pretty simple to see why the Yankees would call up Everson Pereira. Their left field situation isn't very good, not just offensively, but defensively. Everson Pereira has been amazing in AAA. He's a top 100 guy universally. This is a pretty good prospect. This is a guy the Yankees already put on the 40-man, so that means they like him a lot. It's pretty easy to conclude the Yankees are going to promote Everson Pereira at some point over the next couple of days. But Austin Wells is a lot muddier of a case because he struggled a little bit in AAA. He got there later than Pereira. He's not on the 40-man roster, so you would have to DFA someone, and that means you risk losing them. And the big thing here that I think matters that a lot of people aren't looking at is the position, right? Yes, Higashioka and Wortvet have disappointed. They are not has Higashioka been disappointing? I guess he's just been Higashioka, but
It's just him.
Yeah, he's a backup catcher, right? There's no problem. I love Higashioka because, he's caught multiple no-hitters. That's awesome. There are so many good, that's a story he'll be able to tell for the rest of his life. But he is a backup catcher, right? There is a way to see how Wells fits into that catching room, but you also have to think Higashioka and Wortvet are defensive guys, and Wells is not a defensive guy, or is not known for his catching defense. He has improved framing-wise, but you also don't want to disrupt what you've got going on with the pitching staff, especially if you're trying to develop an arm like Johnny Brito. I know Randy Vasquez got sent down, but that's because they don't need a 5th starter for the next couple of days. They can bring him back up in 10 days and then slot him right back into the rotation. So, I think it's fair to say, Alex, if you want Vasquez and Brito to get better, especially in this stage of their career, it's not crazy to say that you'd prefer to have guys like Higashioka and Worthet who can kind of coach them into it, and then give Wells the offseason, spring training, all that stuff to get reps with the major league guys, and then make the team naturally from there. But there is also an argument for Wells to come to the major league level, and the argument for that would be that the results at the minor league level do not reflect how good of a hitter he is. And I think that's a fair conclusion here. Is this more of a Jason Dominguez situation where Jason's a good example of a guy who's put up, solid but not great results helps, but the process at the plate is very good. I would say Dominguez's process at the plate is better than Wells right now, but being an older guy, being a 24-year-old college pick in the 2020 draft, this is a guy you expect to come up to the major league level and kind of already be an impact guy. And it's easy to understand how the left-handed fly ball swing would work in Yankee Stadium. So I guess the question I'd have for you, Alex, is, if you had to give me like a probability, I think it's fair to say Pereira is probably going to play this year. I'm a lot less certain about that with Wells. Do you agree with that assessment, or do you think Wells is more likely than I'm perceiving it as?
Yeah, I mean, Pereira, I think he gets called up and he plays almost every day in the outfield. I mean, I think it's time to see what he's got. He's ready. Austin Wells is another kind of beast here because he's a WRC plus below 90 in AAA, but at the same time, look, he's 24 years old. They want to see this lefty bat. Like, how much more time can you give Austin Wells before you have to make a decision? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what his future holds if they don't start giving him chances sooner rather than later. They have some good defensive catches in AAA. Carlos Narvaez, Agustin Ramirez will be there soon enough. Wells is I feel like he's on a timer. I feel like he's on the clock, and they need to figure out if he can. I feel like he's plateauing in the minors. Like, that's kind of my take on it right now. Is I think that he was doing really, really well. He was climbing through the system, showing some good stuff. I mean, high A last year, he had a 170 WRC plus, 129 in Double A, and now I just kind of feel like he's plateauing a bit. He had a 108, WRC plus this year in Double A. He had 11 homers in 58 games. He's never had like lofty strikeout rates. His career average probably around 24%. Something around there. He has 24% in Triple A right now over 22 games. He had a 474-foot homer the other day, so he has the power. Like, he's got ridiculous power, and he doesn't strike out a ton. He has never dipped below a 10% walk rate in his career at the minor league level, so he's got some decent patience. The question is, like, can you actually rely on him as a defensive catcher? Probably not. Like, he's probably going to struggle in some facets, but again, like, I guess the question is, like, you don't know unless you try. Like, players step up. You know what I mean? Like, players elevate their game at the next level. They want to prove that they're capable. They want to be there. And I kind of feel like right now he's hitting this plateau in minor leagues where he's 24. He's been there for a while. The Yankees haven't really given him the opportunities at times, and I feel like right now is the perfect chance to, like, all right, call him up. He was supposed to be with us during spring training. You know what I mean? He got injured, and then he missed basically all of spring training, so really set him back a lot. But maybe, like, even though he's not performing like the best in AAA right now in terms of offensive production, what's to lose? The Yankees, like Ben Rorvet's not hitting for shit. You know what I mean? Like, he's hitting like 143, he's like a 41 WRC plus. Like, Higgy has a 74, 76 WRC plus. What's the, what are we really losing out here? Like, what are we losing out? I feel like right now, give some of these guys opportunities, see what you have for the future. Ben Rorvet, like, is he a future piece? Maybe. I don't necessarily know. But, I think the sample size is too small. If anything, like, Austin Wells he's that lefty bat. Maybe he capitalizes in Yankee Stadium. Maybe he picks up his game. Maybe he looks really good. I think that he should get a chance. I think that Everson Pereira should get a chance. Is there anyone else that comes to mind, though? I mean, anyone else in AAA right now? Maybe Carlos Narvaez could be a guy that gets the call up, but we have so many catching prospects. I didn't realize we have so many guys that are kind of vying for these opportunities. I honestly just don't know what the Yankees are going to do over the next couple of days.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, and this is an aggressive, this is more of an aggressive call-up. I think you call up Ben Rice. Maybe not today. I think today might be a little much, but I think September you should be a call-up. In terms of peak projections, Scout the Stat Line has these peak projections where these are what they think these hitters can be currently, right, based on their current skill set. And Ben Rice being in Double A, this does hurt him a little bit because being in Double A means, he's 24 in Double A. That's not going to project extremely well, but he still has a 109.5 projected WRC plus. I think that's super important. You get a left-handed guy, even if he's just like a first baseman versus righties or just a bat versus right-handed hitting, or right-handed pitching, that would be really nice to have, right? And the Yankees have struggled to hit right-handed pitching this year. That's been a criticism of the organization, not having left-handed batters. Whether you believe it's the main reason why they haven't won, whether you believe having lefties would just help and it's not necessarily a big-time thing, I think the universal opinion is that the Yankees being better against right-handed pitching is something that they need to do going into 2024. You talked about like Austin Wells, like, can that development happen at the major league level? I think it's possible, right? Like, it's not impossible for that to happen. There are just some guys who they didn't click at certain points. They have slumps, as you mentioned. He didn't play in spring training. you don't know if maybe his swing is off, maybe he's running some poor luck, maybe he's making some good swing decisions and it's just not panning out. Some things like that just happen to some guys. Some guys have lower stock, right? Look at Everson Pereira last year. He got off to a really slow start in high A, and now we're talking about him being at the major leagues, right? You go from struggling in high A to, hey, this guy should be a quality major leaguer in 2023. This is less, that's a calendar year, right? Things happen like this. Prospects, their stock, it rises, it falls, right? It happens randomly. But the guy you're obviously the most paying attention for this specific day or tomorrow is Everson Pereira. That's the guy you're obviously paying attention to here. And in terms of his profile, he's a guy who hammers the baseball, but he also struggles with plate discipline, which gives him a lower floor than other guys, because if you struggle with getting on base and working walks, that's not going to help you, right? Like if you're slumping, you're not going to just be able to work walks and kind of keep your WRC plus from completely plummeting. But if you look at what his profile is, it's very similar to a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, and I think this is a pretty good comparison. If you look at their whiff rates, Everson Pereira in AAA, 36.4%, Teoscar Hernandez in his career, 34.6%, chase rate, 30.3 for Pereira, 29.8 for Hernandez. Their in-zone swing rates, Pereira's a lot more aggressive in-zone, which is a good thing, at 79.8%. Hernandez is still above average at 71.5. And then in terms of average exit velocity, it's 92.7 miles per hour to 91.6. And just like Pereira, Hernandez has pretty good sprint speed numbers, but isn't as aggressive on the base path. So I think these are two very similar players in terms of their offensive profile. Defensively, I like Pereira more because he can play center field and he can do so at a pretty decent clip. Hernandez is really not known for his glove. But if you have a guy like if you can add a Teoscar Hernandez like bat to this lineup, man, in left field, that immediately becomes the Yankees' best left fielder since Brett Gardner, right? And I think his upside speaks to the fact that this guy could be a really good player. I know that there's a lot of dialogue about the Yankees minor league system over the last few days, especially, criticizing how they develop guys and kind of, this idea that they have like a uniform development system where everyone's got to hit the ball hard and everyone's got to be Aaron Judge. But people forget, like, hitting the ball hard and making good swing decisions, those kinds of things turn you into superstars. I can't think of the last position player to win the MVP award and not excel at hitting the ball hard. I mean, you look at, this year it's probably going to be Shohei Ohtani. Last year was Aaron Judge. 2021 was Shohei Ohtani. 2020 was Jose Abreu. 2019 it was Mike Trout. 2018 it was Mookie Betts. 2017 was Aaron Judge, right? Like in the AL side of things. In the NL, I can't recall the NL off the top of my head, but my point is, guys who hit the ball hard win MVPs, right? And end of the day, right, we're trying to develop these guys into the best players they can possibly be. And Everson Pereira, part of what he does is hit the ball hard. And part of what he does is strike out and swing a lot, right? And that's fine. He's going to struggle. He's going to come up and he's going to strike out like 35% of the time. But people have to be okay with that. And I think you have to be able to live with that and live with those struggles for now. Hope the strikeout rate matures a little bit, goes from really bad to just not great. And then I think the power would be there. But ultimately, what you're looking for, as you mentioned, is something to build off of towards next year, right? So that when you enter spring training, you say, hey, Everson Pereira, he collected 100 at-bats last year. Austin Wells, he collected, let's say, 80, 90 at-bats. We got to see some things they struggled with. We got to see some things they excelled with. Give them the offseason to kind of work on those things. Enter spring training, hyper-focus on those things. If you look at what Aaron Judge, what made him a superstar, he closed his stance off. After 2016, he was horrible that year. They saw a couple holes in his swing. They made the tweaks. He became the Yankees' best position player since, prime A-Rod, right? So, and I'm going to kind of pass this off on this note. The Yankees are going to try to identify what these guys' flaws are, and other teams are going to do their best to expose these flaws. It's going to look ugly at times. They're going to play some sloppy baseball. That's part of developing these guys at the major league level. And, I'm excited because there's upside, but it does come with those risks as well.
It's kind of funny you say that because I feel like we've been doing that already. Sloppy baseball, bad base running, mistakes, strikeouts. We haven't scored a run in 2 games, dude. I mean, it's how much worse could it get? You know what I mean? Like, really, how much worse could it get? Is calling Everson Pereira up and putting him in left field over Jake Bauers or Billy McKinney or IKF going to make a significant difference? No. No. Objectively, no. You know what I mean? Like, we have Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito already starting games. Brito's starting today. It's, this team has looked like it's been composed of prospects, and they're mainly backups. They're mainly reserve guys that we had developing in AAA, called them up. The guys with some experience that struggled elsewhere, had some experience, and other teams. But now, like, you're putting faith in guys that you've developed in your system. You know what I mean? Like, Billy McKinney and Jake Bauers came here and learned our system after struggling in the major league level. Everson Pereira is our guy. Like, he's come up through our system. He knows what we've trying to implement here, and hopefully it translates. Yes, he's going to strike out a lot, but he may hit a couple homers in the process. He may make some nice defensive plays in the outfield. You just want to see signs of growth, right? Like Oswaldo Cabrera last year, by no means was he this like insanely great offensive player, but he was defensively competent at a very competent level. Like, he was tremendous for us defensively, and his utility value is certainly there. If he could hit, he'd be on this team playing every day right now. That's the truth. But, you know, right now, like, how much worse could it really get? I think that's kind of the perspective I'm looking at. In terms of calling out some of these guys, we have nothing to lose. Like, the playoffs are out of reach. These depth guys should not be starting or playing games in the future. Like, it's time to see what we have for the future, and guys that could be impactful for us for a long time, and, you know, obviously keep that price tag low. So maybe we can convince Hal hey, Everson Pereira is going to play left field next year. He looked really solid. Oswald Peraza can come up and play this utility role. You know, we can save money there, and then we can go out and spend on one big player like a Cody Bellinger, for example. Like, maybe that's what you try to sell him on. Like, we should spend because we found some pieces across the board from our farm system that keep costs down other places. And that's like kind of where I'm at mentally in terms of the what the Yankees should try to do. But, you know, we'll see what they actually do, because, you know, they don't say a lot and they don't do a lot, so it's hard to really determine what the future looks like right now. But guys, we got you covered on all the forthcoming updates and news and promotions. So make sure to keep in tune with Fireside Yankees. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.